Okay, let's go ahead and move to my main topic.
Okay.
I think that looper pedals are the lost thing for home practice. I was listening to a video the other day that Tom was talking about, Tom Bukovac at Homeschooling, and he was talking about how good of a practice tool they can be. You got to be like right on the downbeat every time. You can build multiple parts. You can find what melodies work inside what type of chord changes. You can find all kinds of stuff. And I don't think people realize how big of a deal, at least I didn't, and I think a lot of people are missing the same thing, how awesome a looper pedal can be for home practice. Sometimes I'm working through a solo for a song I'm going to play live, and I'm like, I'm not positive I've got this timing right. I'll play the chords that are played behind my solo and then hit my looper, and they'll start looping that, and I can practice my solo to make sure I'm like hitting all my marks. So looper pedals, I think, are completely missed by a lot of people, or like, oh yeah, I've got a looper pedal that's built in this HX1 or whatever it is, and they just don't get used. Do you find that looper pedals are a bigger deal and should be used more than
So I didn't buy into loopers for the longest time.
me either?
And I'll be honest, I still don't own a looper pedal. I own an HX1, which has one, but I use that sucker all the time. I don't think I bought into it for a good 10 years of playing. But you're right. So it helps you with your timing. So if you've got bad timing, looper's going to be difficult for you. And actually, you probably do need to practice with one, or at least a metronome, get started there, and then get fairly on time, and then use a looper. Because we know some people that cannot stay on time, and a looper would be their worst nightmare.
But their best friend practicing.
Yeah, for sure. So, for us that are fairly on time, it works great. So, working on chord structure, I do like the idea of, especially having different, chord structures, working with what sounds work, what sounds don't. Because a lot of times, especially when I'm practicing, I got headphones on or something listening to a song, and I'm just noodling or something like that, playing with the song, and I'm like, oh, that does work, that doesn't work. So a looper's a great way to do that and kind of really get in the nitty gritty of what works with certain sounds. Great practice tool. Also teaches you dynamics. All right. So when you start that first loop and you're at like 10 on your volume, and then you try to play something else, you're like, oh, that does not sound right. So then you finally start to realize, oh, my volume knob's my friend. Gain structure is really important because then it gets mush. I think it teaches you about dynamics and like mixes as well, like a mix in a band or something like that. So I think a looper is an underused practicality for musicians, for guitar players. That being said, if all you do is play with the loop pedal, I mean, that's not good either. You need to play with musicians. But I think for the home use, that and a tuner, your best friends.
Yeah, and a lot of these looper pedals now, you can like download or Bluetooth like backing tracks to them, and you can practice that way.
Yep.
I find it so much more interesting using a looper pedal with some stuff, because even if you just play like what your solo is going to be or what some little lead line is going to be, the chord structure behind it, if you go to play it and you step on that looper pedal in that section of the song that you're practicing, all of a sudden it doesn't feel like everything's fell out of it and you don't know exactly where your timing is, or you don't.
Right.
It is so good for that type of thing. If Tom says how big of a deal looper pedals are, I mean, they are. And I didn't buy into it for a long time either. I bought one of these RC1 Boss looper pedals, and it's like ultra simple looper pedal. There's nothing fancy about it. Those Ditto loopers are very similar. And I mean, that's all you need to get started with them. A lot of these pedals, a lot of delay pedals have loopers built in them. A lot of multi-effects have them in there.
Right.
So you might have a looper and not even realize you've got one on your board.
Right.
The TC Flashback has a looper built in it. So you had a looper pedal for how many years?
And I had no idea.
You didn't even know you had a looper pedal.
Yeah.
So go out there and see if you've got one and play with it a little bit more. I think you'll find it a little more inspiring to practice. And boy, they are way cooler than I give them credit for, because it just kind of feels like It feels like buying a guitar stand. It feels like buying cables.
It does, but I want to tell you what, not even just the reasons that we have already talked about, but getting your strum rhythm down. I mean, I know that sounds simple, but sometimes there are certain beats that just your arm or your hand isn't coordinated with, especially like fingerstyle playing. I think it's a really easy thing to gloss over how like we're not as controlled as we want to be when we're playing guitar, especially rhythmically. So a looper is a great way to practice that too.
Yeah, it's good for that. It's good to like play with your timing on like being on the back beat, on the front of the beat,
Yeah.
dead on, straight eights, kind of like, I mean, there's so many different things you can do with it.
And there's a lot of times I'm playing with the looper and I'm like, oh, the middle section actually I drug out,
Yeah.
but then I ended on time. And it really does help you like, oh, I need to be better about this.
Yeah, I mean, you can use looper pedals to play through a whole section and then just listen back to it. Be like, man, I suck.
Yeah.
Or you're like, hey, you know what? That little section I played kind of fits in this. I should mess with that more.
Right.
So I just want to kind of bring that up because I think it's underutilized. And I think we should probably be using those more often than what we do. I'm going to start using it more. My little home board I use a lot. I'm going to leave a little spot open for it. That way I can throw it on there at any time or have a jack for it where I can just plug it in and I'm all set up. But you want to